Welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my video. Today another episode in the prepping series. Let's get cracking with some new risks, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, point 13 is a little bit of a, it sounds a little bit strange, but apparently there is something going on in the background. I heard a couple of people talk about this recently as well. So for you who don't know, basically there's two big companies in the world that basically control most of the things that are happening in the world. Is BlackRock and Vanguard, and they are now looking at how to make money in different ways apparently, and basically they are trying now to see if they can get the rights that if they point to a mountain, say this is my mountain now, that it's theirs, and then somebody else can buy it from them and they get the money for it. Something like that, something ridiculous, I don't know, but apparently it's going on. And so I don't know how serious it is, but I heard this and I thought, well, it is something to consider. I'm not too too worried about it at this stage, but you know, it is something that could potentially happen. What will happen then? Well, yeah, cost of living will go up, and rioting, looting, maybe even civil war, because people are obviously not okay with it, and also people are afraid for, you know, animals, environment and nature being destroyed by rich people, for example, that have no sense of respect for nature, and they just want, for example, they want the mountain and want to build a beautiful house, and that, you know, several species die in the process. They don't care because it's their money, and you know, that sort of thing. So it could get nasty. And apparently, for example, as well, there are millionaires that are buying property to prevent other people from growing food on those properties, or on those plots or fields, whatever, to bring food prices up. So create scarcity on the food market deliberately so that they can make more money of it. So it's sad, but that's apparently how the world works. So yeah, just follow the news again, and maybe track a little bit the financial market, where it's going, and yeah, try to become self-sufficient. If you can buy a little bit bigger piece of ground to grow vegetables and so on, that might be a good idea. Yeah, to become self-sufficient, have some vegetables, have maybe some animals like chickens for eggs and so on, and learn skills and acquire tools for being self-sufficient, for example, fishing, slaughtering, hunting, and so on. 14. A tsunami. Basically an underwater earthquake could happen at any stage. There is tectonic plates that can move, that can touch each other, and that can create tremors, and that could create large waves that could become a tsunami and yeah, hit a country. Generally, in the area where we are in Europe, the ground is quite stable. I think you have to go up higher or lower, but in the area where we are, it's quite stable. But yeah, if it would happen, the Netherlands would be, you know, we are protected, but if something fails in that regard, then we have a big problem, because then it's quite easy for half the country to be flooded significantly. As some of you might know from my previous videos, the Netherlands is about 7 meters underwater for a very big part of it. And so if the dams break, it would flood at least half of the Netherlands. The area where I live is quite high, so I wouldn't really have to be worried, I imagine. But still, it is not a good scenario. So, you know, if a tsunami happens, what could happen? Extreme flooding, loss of life and injured people, property damage, and yeah, so that is something that we have to really consider. Is there a chance? What's the likelihood? Likely is very low, but the severity, if it happens, is very high, and therefore it's a 10. What do you do for prepping? Well, generally you follow the news and have tools available that if the power is out, you know, that list we already mentioned several times in this video. For me, as I said, I live quite far off the ocean and I also live quite high, and we are living on a continent that is quite stable, so for me, I don't really see this being a problem. Okay, now the next one, point 15, is earthquakes. Now, as I said, our ground is pretty stable. However, we also have a big gas pocket under our country, up towards the North Sea, and they were pumping out gas, I think until quite recently, about a year, 1.5 years ago. They had to stop. And they had to stop because we would get tremors of shifting earth and so on, and it would damage houses. There's a lot of people sitting with damaged houses and roads that are damaged and so on, just from slight tremors. And I don't mean that houses are collapsing, but there are, you know, like cracks forming in the sides of the buildings and so on. So I think that has been going on for several years, and they finally said, guys, we are stopping because this is getting too bad. So it is likely, even though now they've stopped extracting gas from the area where people are living, but they are continuing on sea, or they're trying to get new pockets on the sea opened up to continue gas extraction from there. Light tremors is the most common thing there in our case, and property damage is, as I mentioned, effects of this. Likelihood, now that we stopped drilling for gas on land, is not that high, I imagine, and severity, you know, there's property damage if it happens, but yeah, as we stopped, I don't foresee it happening again in the near future. So for me, I'm far away from that, or quite far away from that. The Netherlands isn't that big, so I cannot really say quite big, quite far. But no, it is not in our area, so I don't. Okay, so next one, sinkhole. A sinkhole is basically something that could happen, and the sinkhole could be something small, but it could also get quite big. Now, for example, when I was in South Africa, what is happening in bigger cities, it might be that there is a mine under the city or partially under the city, and that they call them zamazamas, that are illegal miners that go into those old mines, abandoned mines, and they start damaging and cutting out supports, because in those supports there's still valuable materials, but yeah, obviously the supports are there to support the mine, and so if you take out the supports, the mine can collapse. And if several floors collapse, then everything above will also collapse, and then you get a sinkhole. I've heard it once when I was in South Africa that actually part of the road collapsed because of a sinkhole, because of a mining tunnel underneath was destroyed by zamazamas. So they had to backfill it and repair all the water lines, etc. So not nice. In the Netherlands, well, I mean, it could happen on a small scale where as a water line bursts under a road and they don't notice it, and it flushes away all the sand surrounding that pipe, and the sand above it gets so saturated with water that it starts to basically lose its strength, and then the road collapses, or part of the road collapses, or part of the sidewalk collapses, or the house shifts and cracks are formed in the wall. It is a possibility. It's not highly likely, but it is definitely a possibility. Then, so again, likelihood 2, severity 2, I think. I mean, it's for me personally a 2, so I wouldn't get damage or whatever from it, most probably, unless I crash into a sinkhole with my car, for example. And the likelihood is very low. So I think these days they have detection on pressure on water lines and gas lines and so on, so they know that if there's a leak, they know between what pipes and where and what section there will be something wrong. So I don't think there will be a lot of risk there, generally speaking. Last one that I'm gonna do for today is an avalanche, mud or rock slide. Yeah, so in general sense, if there's a tremor or whatever at a mountain where there's snow could start sliding. If there's heavy rainfall, like we saw in America not too long ago, and what we saw in Spain and in Austria and in Germany, deforestation could be a problem, and there's several reasons why it could be that there's all of a sudden a lot of water coming down the mountain. Now, what will generally happen is that will flood in those areas. Now, in the Netherlands, we don't have mountains, so we also don't have snow, generally speaking, or when we have snow, it's like 1 or 2 centimeters. So let's say an inch for American people, so yeah, we don't really have to deal with those types of things. But if there's a lot of water and mud and snow coming down the mountains, it goes into the rivers, and from those rivers it goes out to the sea, and that means the water comes through the Netherlands. And hence we have a lot of rivers and canals and dikes and stuff like that, where we can basically manage the excess water and the overflow of water and direct it to where it doesn't cause any damage or problems. So generally that works out well. I'm not saying we don't have flooding. I think 2 or 3 years ago we had quite significant flooding in the south of the Netherlands. But yeah, generally speaking, we do not really have an issue with that. But for example, Germany, Poland and Austria, they do have issues with it. In Italy, they have a lot of mudslides, but they have 1 or 2 mudslides a year. And as I mentioned before, that Spain also had quite a big issue this year with heavy rainfall and the consequences of that. Generally speaking, what does it mean for prepping? It means that you might be cut off, and you need to prep for being cut off: food, water, cash, all the things that we mentioned already a few times in this video. So likelihood for me, personally, well, I'm high, not drugs high, but my house is quite high up, elevated, I should say. And the part of the country where I live is also elevated. I don't live near a major river, so then that major river would have to flood at least 20 kilometers around it to affect me, and that I don't see that happening. So yeah, I don't think that it will affect me, but for the basic things that I would require if something like it would happen, then I'm prepared.
Thank you for watching my video. If you want to subscribe and like the video, then thanks. Much appreciated. And I'm hoping to see you in the next one. Thank you and stay well. Bye.